I changed the flow of companies, and I can do it with one important, impactful meeting. If you could make it in poker and be great and have money, you could become a billionaire. That was my theory.
Have you thought about your risk tolerance of things in life?
I invest in founders, not ideas. Founding a company is like chewing glass and staring into the abyss.
Legacy. What do you want people to remember you as? Skechers reached out. They said, hey, we love the work that you're doing. And they're like, we want to send you some shoes. And I said, wait, I'm about to interview Phil next week. Can you send me another pair? So I want to wish you happy early Christmas.
Appreciate it.
Let me know what you think.
Take a look now.
Yeah, take a look at them.
I don't have any shoe contracts right now. I've been talking about doing my own shoe for a long time.
Yeah.
Ever since 2001. And then we talked to what's Steph Curry's company?
Under Armour?
Yeah, we talked to Under Armour about my own shoe. Like 2012, 13. Oh, that would have been nice. But it didn't happen.
Well,
these are nice.
Poker is played with the upper body and the hands, right? You don't really see you on TV with shoes.
Yeah, but I'm on TV so much. I'm about
Yeah.
to host like 4 television programs next year, and so
4?
yeah, it's kind of crazy.
That's a lot of television.
One of them is really fun that maybe is applicable to this, is kind of interesting, is one of the shows is called Kingmaker. Kingmaker is interesting because what I would do is I would go to a city, and then I would go with my best friend Chamath, my partners Jimry and Bernard Moon, and then one other person. We're going to look for a VC who's really good, who's female. And then we go to a city like Houston and we get pitched. Nice. So that would be 100 startups, so 200 startups would apply. 20 would be on the show. Well, the difference is they record us all day. So imagine American Idol, I'm the host. And then
it's like a Shark Tank tour.
Correct, Shark Tank. Except here's the thing: you can actually invest in those companies
During the show or
Correct.
Afterwards.
During the show, you see a company you like, you want to put in $20, press a button. $100.
The audience.
The audience can invest in the company while they're watching the show.
Wow. And they do that through, I guess, something they sign up for.
They got a FINRA license. They spent 6 years getting this. They raised $20 million. They do a show called Going Public right now.
Yeah.
And this will be on Twitter. So that's a fun one for me.
That is fun.
So you go to 5 different cities. You think of a 13-episode arc, 5 cities, 2 companies from each city. Now you have 10 companies. You go on show 11 from 10 to 4. Now you're in your final 4. Show 11, you go from 4 to 2. Show 12, you go from 2 to 1, and then maybe show 13, just talk about the final company. And so the winner would receive like either me as an advisor or Chamath as an advisor or whoever they want on the panel as an advisor. And so it's just kind of fun, and the audience can invest the whole way. And so it would be on networks, it would be on everywhere you can imagine. Kingmaker, starring Phil Hellmuth.
Yours truly. So it's almost like a tournament style with companies. It's like The Voice. You know how The Voice people, there's a bunch of contestants. So you're saying there's a bunch of companies as contestants, and then whoever has the best business plan idea, gets to move on to the next round. Is that
correct? Whoever has it's the best business, right? You're pitching businesses. You're pitching early stage companies.
So different from Shark Tank, you won't invest on the first meeting. You won't. Maybe the audience will.
I might.
You might.
I might too if I see something great and I'm like, hey, I want to put depends on, the deal and who it is. And, I've learned a long time ago that I invest in founders, not ideas.
Right.
If the idea is idiotic, then probably the founder's idiotic. But if the idea is somewhat doable, and I think and I take a look, and that's literally what comes down to me at the last minute is this person can do it.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Or this person can't do it. I invested in Nutcase Milk, and now they're on the show Going Public. And
not bad from an advisor. It looks like you're earning your equity.
She came to me and Joelle Winand, and she's married to number 3 at Shopify. She doesn't need my money. She doesn't need me. She said, I want you to be my advisor. And I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool. I'm honored that you called me. We'd only hung out like 10 times, but I think she saw something. And I said, I want Ninja. I want to bring Ninja on board. And And the first meeting, she's like, I don't know who Ninja is. But her boyfriend, Daniel, now husband, is like, Ninja's big time. And I sent a text to Grimes, the artist. I sent a text to Draymond Green, one of my guys, Steph Curry, a bunch of different big influencers.
Yeah.
And the only one that responded to that first round of texts, I never sent a second text, was Ninja. And fast forward a few months later, and my vision of having Ninja part of the brand has come to pass. Ninja drinks Nutcase Milk. It's a cashew milk.
Yeah.
And now the brand is taking off. I think our latest run is 185,000 cans. She met Steve Aoki through me. Now Steve Aoki does the strawberry milk for us. And then we have this artist called Hannah from Handcraft Entertainment, who I advised them, Handcraft. And she's drinking, I think she signed with us to do the vanilla milk.
Nice.
And so, but it felt really good. Here, a really powerful businesswoman, Joelle, comes to me and says, I want you as my advisor. I concoct this idea of hiring Ninja, and boom, now Ninja has a big piece of the company, and the company's taking off. Maybe it'll be a $200-300 million company. If it does hit $200-300 million, I think I have 2 or 3 points or whatever, and it turns into real money. And so that's what you try to do when you're an advisor. You either raise money or come up with great ideas, or both.
Yeah.
But also raising for non-VCs. So that's why I advise 27 companies. Founders tell other founders to come to me.
I mean, what a way to kick the pot off. It clearly already it's clear how hard you go for the companies that you work with. You're not just a name just to be on the cap table, which I appreciate. Phil, I was driving over here. You know what's really ironic? You're the best poker player of all time, in many's opinion, certainly mine. And you've made most of your poker earnings in Las Vegas, yet we're here in your living room in Palo Alto, California, in the middle of Silicon Valley, where we're in the center of the tech and venture capital universe. Number two, your reputation as a poker player, being the poker brat. I've loved some of your tantrums. They're pretty good. The irony in that? I mean, do you just sort of laugh about how your life has unfolded from going to a place where it's known for gambling, casinos, and money, and now you're here, and it's just so ironic that you're here in Palo Alto.
I could see from a lot of people's point of view. Here's a professional poker player. Why is he living in Palo Alto? There's no casinos, maybe 30 minutes away, 25 minutes away. Why is he living in Palo Alto? And, I think that I was lucky to find my wife in the 1980s, and she's incredible. And then you go through this process, which many people know as called you match. So you submit your top 10 places you want to be a doctor. They submit their top 10. The universities submit their top 10. Now, she was told she was a lock to go to Harvard. And, flip of the coin, we could have ended up in Boston. But
I don't strike you. I didn't see you in the Northeast. I see you on the West Coast. A quick flight from Vegas. This is where you
Harvard was not going to happen because her number one choice was Stanford, and her number two choice was UCLA Harbor. Now we know UCLA Harbor, was going to take her. They already said they'd take her. So we thought we'd be at UCLA Harbor. And LA is a great place for high stakes poker. That's where I thought I was going to live. And then Stanford, I don't think, they were taking 6, and at the last minute decided to take 9. My wife will give me some credit because Alan Schatzberg, who was in charge of the program, a terrific doctor, was interested in my story. This guy's a world champion poker player. And so I think I get just a little bit of credit for her ending up at Stanford. She used to hate it when I would say that. But we're both super happy here. But I could see how, hey, Phil's a poker player. What the hell is he doing in Palo Alto?
That was kind of my first, when I did my homework, kind of my first reaction. But it's really cool. It makes for actually a really cool story and appropriate for our conversation. It's pretty cool to see how well-rounded your life is now, not just with poker, but what you're doing in business. But taking it way back, 1989, your first ever World Series bracelet. it's amazing how much has probably changed in your life since then, and fast forward, there's times, and I'll zoom through it quickly, but we can touch on certain timelines, is winning it all and then almost losing it all and then winning it again, and the ability for you to deal with risk. You may be one of the best people on the planet dealing with risk. Have you thought about your risk tolerance of things in life? And like,
I have thought about that, and like, yeah, I don't, it's weird because when I talk sometimes, the people that I talk about hanging out with and the people that I know that I'm with, it just sounds like I'm always bragging, but I think now finally the world's gotten to the bottom of it. When you hang out with those people, that's who you talk about hanging out with. And then, and then it's also interesting because I was just thinking to myself, there's so many high stakes poker players, so many people in the poker world that are broke. Like, people would be stunned to know, hey, here's 100 big names in poker, 85 of them, everybody thinks are millionaires, maybe they're broke. And so I was thinking to myself, it's just, I feel lucky that I've been able to manage my money well. But I give myself some credit, and maybe I sound cocky, but I give myself some credit for making the right investments.
yeah,
Because now, I say I have 1% of the company Prize Picks, which a lot of people out there have heard of. I mean, they're right next to, FanDuel, and they're DraftKings, and then you've got Prize Picks. And so, that 1% maybe is worth, $60 million, right? And so and you find yourself with 30 different or 35 different private companies. Some of them take off.
yeah,
And then when they take off, all of a sudden you have a lot of money on paper. So what does the Prize Picks thing do? Okay, I still haven't received anything, but I advised Adam. He's an incredible businessman.
Adam Wexler, founder, CEO of Prize Picks.
Correct. Adam Wexler, he's incredible. And, and it was an honor to be with him. And, kind of from the 2020 when sports disappeared in the pandemic, and he came to me and he said, man, Phil, we were raising at 30 million. There's no sports. No live sports. Can you help us a little? And I'm sure, he gives me some credit for helping and bringing in some big name investors and also kind of being a cheerleader. So then what happens is I've been and then when things do hit, when I get, 10 million from this project or 5 million, things hit. And then I've made really smart bets. And so I give myself credit for that. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I also feel a little weird complimenting myself, but I think that I don't know if anybody else could have pulled off what I pulled off, starting from poker and just finding kind of the right investments, the right founders, taking chances, also protecting my money.
Sure.
Like, we own 100% of this house.
Right.
Maybe this house is worth 10 million. If you look it up on the sites, they'll say it's worth 5 or 6, but pretty sure if I sold it tomorrow, 10 or 11. And so then you learn to not owe anybody money, to just when money comes in, pay down your debt to nothing. Smart moves like that. And I learned the hard way, but at least even when I won the main event, I won $650,000 for that in 1989, which is like 10 million today. At least I protected that money.
Yeah.
So I paid cash for a penthouse condominium, $185,000. I paid cash for a car. Now I found myself broke with no money, but also no debt.
Wow. That's incredible. It's incredible, Phil, also the parallels between poker and business. Now, I can't wait to get to the tables and try to go at you, but I am a poker novice, admittedly. But what I've learned is the parallels and how similar it is in the mindset you have to have in poker and how it translates to business. And you said previously in another interview that, great business leaders actually can learn poker and pick it up pretty fast. I think about reading the room that you're in. I think about managing risk. I think about patience, timing. What, from your perspective, how has poker allowed you to be such a sharp business person?
Well, those are all a thing for sure. And so then you kind of find yourself I had this theory, in the late 90s that any of the great, if you could make it in poker and be great and have money, you could become a billionaire. That was my theory. So this theory was a very interesting theory that all the greatest poker players take the top 15 in the world. And there's 2 or 3 that probably can't make it for whatever emotional reason. Maybe they're not, maybe their EQ isn't big enough. But, you know, say 12 out of 15 could become billionaires by finding a different profession, because poker's hard and a lot of business is easy by comparison, right? Poker, you can lose all of your money in any single given day. That remained true for me for a long time. And people get drunk or they stay up all night, and they do that.
Yeah.
And so management, paramount importance, how much money to risk per day, all of this stuff, all these parameters, how to play perfectly, how to understand maybe this is a game I shouldn't be playing, maybe this is the game I should be playing. And so you're managing your assets, you're managing which companies you invest in, which games you play in, we could say.
Yeah.
And so, and then what happened was a bunch of poker players started Full Tilt Poker, and they were all on the path to become billionaires. And I'm like, there's the proof. Now, that company, unfortunately, the U.S. government stepped in the way of that. And so these guys, which they may have had a $50 billion company right now, and maybe 6 of them would be billionaires, were cut short from that because of some government. Now, that was their fault, because all they had to do was spend $100,000, you know, with the right Congress people, and poker would never have been banned. So that was my theory. And so, you know, but I don't also want to work hard enough. I value my life. I value my longevity, and I value my health.
And your time.
My grandfather, George Hellmuth, was considered, I think he won the best heart surgeon in the world award. But he did not live long enough because he was, I mean, medical school back then was brutal.
Yeah.
They'd make these guys stay up all night on call. And then he had health problems of his own. And my father chose a route, my father, Phil Hellmuth, chose a route where he protected his longevity. He worked out. He never took anything too high stress. He went inside the University of Wisconsin and just moved to the top without much stress.
Yeah.
And that was smart. And I saw him do that, and we talked about it. And so, you know, yeah, I'm a professional poker player, but there's rarely a lot of stress. You know?
Yeah.
The stress is when you're a little bit short on money and you need to perform, which then, you know, made me win. And when I was desperate, man, would win all the time.
That's when you get your best. And that's what they kind of say about startup founders and some of the founder journeys where they almost ran out of money and then they turned it around. It's crazy how those.
So I'm kind of proud of that path. So poker players, the best poker players in the world, can become billionaires because poker's harder than business.
Sure.
So I've kind of proven that. Am I a billionaire? No. You know, I mean, do I have over 100 million in companies that, if they're sold at what they're worth,
on paper,
probably worth $100 million, which is amazing, right? But I don't dwell on that. You know, if you dwell on that, you're kind of an asshole. You know, I wrote a New York Times best-selling book. If I dwell on that, I'm kind of an asshole.
I love that song. You gotta know when to hold 'em.
Yeah. Know when
to
to
fold 'em. Know when to walk away.
Know when to run.
You better count. Okay, I won't keep it. But like, that's just such an applicable song to, like, obviously poker, but also like life and starting, especially in the company space. I want to bring this up. Susquehanna Trading, $1 billion trading firm. And I think what a lot of people don't know is the founders were once professional poker players.
So I met Jeff Yaz for the first time.
When?
Now, if you look, I flew in September to meet him.
Okay, recently. Gotcha.
At his place in the Hamptons. And I'd only met him when I came into poker in the 1980s, maybe 1985, 86, I was playing in Vegas. By 86, call it.
Yeah.
And the guys, after a couple of years, I became known, you know. The guys kept saying, poker's a zero-sum game. There's 3 guys. They were professional poker players, and they went to the market, and they made a lot of money.
Yeah.
Kept hearing the stories through the 90s. And then a lot of those guys that knew Yaz by then kind of dropped out of poker. Weren't around, I didn't hear him. But for about a decade, I did a charity event where, in New York, I do these charity events. And one of the guys said, yeah, I'm one of those guys. It was Jeff Yaz. But there was no real reason to connect. I wasn't really in business, and he didn't really ask for my number. I didn't really ask for his number. And, but I said, oh, that's the guy. Well,
Yeah.
now fast forward to, you look at the TikTok cap sheet, and Susquehanna owns, I don't know, it's called 15% of TikTok. Wait a minute, TikTok's worth 400 billion. Well, they say 300 billion, whatever. 12%, of TikTok. And
It's a lot of poker chips.
I heard it's 500 billion actually. So that would be that's $60 billion that Jeff Yaz has.
Yeah.
Okay. Just in TikTok stock. Now, we know that he has a piece of 2,000 other companies, right? And so, I mean, he's just, so finally my friend's like, hey, I got to get you and Yaz together. You're both all-time greats. You could have switched places, he said.
So you never went against him with different, like, you guys didn't cross paths on the poker table?
He told me when I met him that he played in 1978, 1979.
Okay, so
I didn't come into poker in Vegas till, call it December 85.
Got it.
Yeah, December 85 is one of my first trip. And so, yeah, he'd left poker 5 years before I came in.
Yeah.
My friend's like, you guys could switch places. Yeah, right.
Yeah. I mean,
to me, what he did is unbelievable, becoming one of the richest people in the world. But he told me he was a professional poker player for 2 years. Hello, Jeff Yaz. And he told me he was playing 60 hours a week, which makes sense.
yeah.
That's why I could never be a CEO. That's maybe why, in my genes, that's why my grandfather probably died before he should have.
Yeah.
If I stretch myself to that many hours, I'm not going to be healthy. I'm 60. I'm in great shape. Just had all my blood work. Everything's perfect. It's amazing.
Glad to hear it.
But I let myself sleep in every day, and I know my limitations. So Yaz, working 60 hours, professional poker player, lived in Vegas 2 years. Then he decided he wanted to get a seat at a market, but he figured it was easier and cheaper to get a seat in the Philadelphia Exchange. So he moves to Philadelphia, starts Susquehanna, and the rest is history for him.
It's incredible. It's I think one of the coolest parts about what they do is they train new employees poker, because those principles apply to what they do. And from your perspective, Phil, you're invested / advising around 27 companies. You have interacted with not only some of the best investors, but some incredible entrepreneurs. You probably have a great sense of when you're interacting with a founder, like the determining that it factor. And like, so when you meet a founder, let's say you're getting pitched, right? And you've named a couple of different companies. What are some common traits among them that, you think, okay, this person could be very successful?
They have to have the will to succeed. So I invested in a company, SEQL, and I believed in Rob DeWolf. And how did I help? I introduced him to Alan Keating, who's a poker player, and Alan Keating found him as COO, who then moved to Austin with him. So I contributed a lot to this company. But the original idea they were operating under did not work and was not going to work. But he pivoted. Rob pivoted, and now we sold SEQL for $20 million to FastBreak AI. So now I have a piece of FastBreak AI. FastBreak AI does the scheduling for Name a League.
NBA.
NFL, yes. NBA, yes. Name another league. NHL, yes.
NWSL.
Major League Baseball, 37 of the biggest in the world they do scheduling for. The NBA schedule alone has 1,000 parameters.
Pickleball league?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm just saying the 37 times.
Yeah.
But the NBA schedule has 1,000 parameters, so that would take a human being, like a room of human beings, months. They could press a button, boom. So Rob was someone who I believed could do it. I introduced him to Bill Gurley. I introduced him to Chamath. I introduced him to Sky Dayton. I introduced him to like a lot of these ballers.
You're like a walking tier 1 VC
Rick
at this point.
Thompson, another baller VC who doesn't get as much press. Introduced him to all of these guys. When we went to Austin, we all flew down to Austin because our friend bought, what's the big conference down there?
Tilted up? Down? Sorry.
What's the big conference?
South by Southwest?
Yeah, our friend bought South by Southwest. And so we went down there. Rob was down there. I got him in the same room with all these guys. He was pretty pleased. But that's an example of someone who pivoted. So I believe a founder has to have the ability to pivot.
Okay.
So I just invested. I was not sure that Rob would make it with the company he did, but I put $100,000 in. That was the $100,000 that hurt because I left myself cash short, which I don't often do. I could have sold 100 different assets, but I finally did have to sell an asset, which pissed me off.
Yeah.
My superpower is invest, and never sell. But it was painful to invest, and Rob brought it to fruition. Now, Fast Break AI, CEO founder, is a baller. He starts buying all these different leagues because what does it work well for? He's doing scheduling. He started buying sports leagues. Oh, we do 1,000 sports leagues. So he started buying up these sports leagues. He is going to kill it. Now, my latest thing is I'm going to go to Riyadh, and I'm going to ask for $40 million for Fast Break AI. So now, John Stewart, not that John Stewart, Fast Break AI CEO John Stewart, and I have just had wonderful phone calls, and he wants me to come on board. So maybe I'll sign with 1%. Maybe he runs this to $2 billion. Maybe I make $20 million from this deal because my connections over in the Middle East, over in the kingdom, will invest a bunch of money in what he's doing, and they're all going to make a lot of money. We're all going to make money together. So there's a story of a founder who sold to another founder, and then all of a sudden this founder who he sold to is like, oh, we want Phil involved.
Wow.
So that's fun for me. The word of mouth stuff kind of works. People see, they hear stories about Nutcase Milk. They hear stories about how I help introduce all my founders to different people. And so it's kind of weird. I get a phone call and like, there's a guy right now who I think might be the next Zuckerberg. I've been hesitating. I'm like, I probably should answer his email. And I told Chamath that this guy could be the next Zuckerberg. He's raising at $250,000 a point and wants me to come on board for a point and understands the limitations, that I have, right? So I feel like I know he's going to do it. And so, but then there's this push-pull, right? Like how many hours, it's not the hours that I work.
Yeah.
Every company I sign with, all 27, I give them 1 hour a month.
Wow.
And they give me 1 or 2 points. Why?
Because of the impact in that time. You're introducing them to life-changing.
I change companies.
Yeah.
That's what I do. I change companies. I change the flow of companies, and I can do it with one important, impactful meeting. So here's a sheet of paper. You're the founder. Phil, I want you to introduce me to these 8 people. Boom, 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 boom. Phil, I want you to give me 10 hours a year. Phil, I see that you see the vision. Phil, I want you can act as a cheerleader for me, right? That's very important to founders.
Yeah.
Because you raise $5 million from a company for your company, and you go tell your brothers and sisters and your family, and they're like, is he bragging? It's hard.
It is. No,
it's hard. But they can call me and I can say, great job, pat them on the back, but keep your head down. We have, I use this statement with all my founders. We have miles to go before we sleep. Cheerleading stuff's important too. They keep telling me. And so then it's a matter, so I'm not working very many hours, right?
Right.
But my mind is spread across 27 companies. And then I run into the best travel investor in the world for my travel company, and I connect. And so I think that's what's been pulling me down and causing me to lose sleep. No, sorry, go ahead.
No, I appreciate you finishing that thought. It's you're incredibly efficient and like very impactful with your time in these companies. So that can't be overstated enough. But I had an idea for you, and I would imagine if I was in your position to really test a founder's grit and resolve, because they're going to go through a lot of shit. I would have set up a one-on-one poker match and have them come to your place, and you just shit talk them and just see if you can push them to the brink and go all in an evening. So that's how I maybe would have thought it from your position.
That's entertaining, but what I really need to find out is what their vision for the future is, what it looks like in 1 year, 2 years. And oftentimes when I'm talking to founders, I start talking about year 3 or 4, and they're like, what the fuck? So that I have kind of a superpower there that helps me look way into the future and see what could potentially help get them from A to B, from B to C. Sometimes I'm way over here on X.
Yeah.
The founder needs to be completely focused on A. You finish your number one thing, but I'm way over here on X. What if when we do this? But yeah, so yeah, to me, it's what kind of grit do they have? Can't necessarily be tested at the poker table unless they're poker players. But you get a sense, a lot of these founders, they better be working 70-hour weeks. But you don't want to tell someone to kill themselves either, so you kind of have to balance that and figure it out.
Absolutely. You're best friends with Chamath, who you're going to play with later tonight. CEO of Social Capital, very well-known Silicon Valley investor. What has Chamath taught you about picking the right founders from what you've seen, what he's done with Social Capital? What have you learned from him in terms of entrepreneurship?
It's interesting. Chamath hasn't taught, what Chamath has taught me is more like learn by example. So in the early days of Social Capital, I would go in, but I probably attended 5 or 6 pitches, and I wish I would have done something. A bunch of those meetings I attended, and then what happened was Dave Goldberg, who we lost. He was like the super mensch of our group, married to Sheryl Sandberg, and we lost him. And in 2015, heart attack. But he had set me up with a company, and I enjoyed helping the founder. And then it led to another, and then it led to something else but this kind of stuff, it wasn't like people helped me decide. I had to figure this out all on my own. But being in the game, I saw the realm of possibilities. Jason Calacanis is doing a lot of interesting, he's doing 50 new startups, 100 new startups a year.
He's got launch
in his
inside.
launch fund.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, if he can do it, maybe I can step in a little bit myself. So poker was always number one. But then kind of, I have a lot of time. I play poker once a week when I'm at home, and I've been home, probably 3 of the last 4 months, and so it gives me a lot of free time.
It's incredible. And how nice is it that he's like down the street probably, or like a town over?
It is. It's great. Chamath called me today. We had a really nice, deep conversation. And he and I are similar, right? We're similar. Both super successful. Both have climbed to the top of the mountain. Both, I have to battle my ego a little bit, and we can, and we both have kind of wives that ground us.
Yeah.
That can kind of pull the, we're up on the balloons floating around a little bit. Speaking more about myself, but Chamath is just a great individual, great person.
Absolutely. Do you have a good story you could share about maybe a time where you had an interesting interaction with a founder, or maybe an interaction with a founder you ended up investing in? You're like, this is weird, but you got my check. Here you go.
I had a guy, Michael Afric, call me from first his old company, which was involved in emojis, if you look him up. So this is a guy that opened for the Pretenders, that opened for, what's that boy band in the 90s, 2000s?
I was born 98, so I'm maybe not have the knowledge that,
So
he's not that old either.
I think he opened for Britney Spears, but he opened for some of the biggest acts in the world. And so Michael then turned into a CEO. And so I did an event with him. We only hung out that one time, exchanged emails back and forth. And then he comes to me and he's like, all right, Phil, I'm going to do Handcraft Entertainment. And I want you to be my advisor. And I was felt good to me. Here's a guy that's a rock star, that was a CEO, could ask anybody because it comes to me. And he said, hey, we have Louis Bell, the #1 songwriter in the world. He writes songs for Cardi B. He writes songs for Justin Bieber. I assume you know those fucking artists, kid.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's more of my era, more of my age.
Louis Bell is considered the world's #1 songwriter. So he's a part of the company, right? And we're going to do J-pop. And I have an artist.
Okay.
Japanese pop. K-pop took off. We're going to do J-pop. And I'm like, okay, Michael, I love this. From the first phone call, I said I'm in. I think I wrote a check for $100,000, maybe $150,000, and sent it in. How have I been helpful? Because it's a Japanese company, they wanted to be connected to Shohei Ohtani. baseball player, biggest baseball player in the world.
Right.
And so, well, my friend Peter Guber owns the Dodgers. Peter's a really good friend of mine. He owns the Dodgers and the Warriors. And I reached out and I said, hey, Peter, can we have our artist Anna Aya do something for Japanese night? And he sent me to Lon. Lon's incredible. Lon's president of the organization down there. And Lon Rosen. And Lon's probably like, fuck, Phil, what the fuck does he know about music? Blah, blah. But it turns out that they move forward a little bit and they're like, wow, she's really good. She does have a hit single. She does have world-class artists. And so the more he dug into it, the more he liked. And so what happened was a month later, we did, for our song, for Anna's song, we were able to wear Dodgers gear. And she did open for Japanese night. She came and sang at Japanese night. So my connections certainly helped to get that done. And but Michael's a guy who's going to do it. I know he's going to do it. I already know he's going to do it. I've met him. I like this. I like this when founders come to me and they've done something else for a living. And now, rock star to CEO, CEO founder to his second CEO founder. Okay, I'm in, Michael.
Yeah. Man, it's just so fascinating, your world. Okay, so Phil, aside from your network, aside from connecting to other amazing people, I just feel like entrepreneurs, if they're in a hole, if they're in their pinch, or something's not going right, or they're down, right? They're down big and they need to make some big bets. I feel like you'd be a great person to talk to. Have you ever sort of we're talking about how everything's going well. I want to really cut the bullshit and get to like the real shit that happens when you build companies, which is not a lot of times, a lot of shit fails and it doesn't work. And for you, even as many times as you've won, you've been so close to losing it all. And so have you? Here's
one, Hamza Siddiqui, who we do this. He has this. The reason I've met him in the first place is we have this we have VR poker.
Yeah.
With 10,000 monthly active users. This company was done. It was bankrupt. It was gone. He, through his sheer will, kept this company alive. And it reached out to me like 2 years later. It's like, oh, we have 4,000 DAUs. I'm like, what? So you have, like, we're talking about VRAR,
yeah,
online poker that people play. People meet each other. They get married. Like, I mean, it's pretty crazy. And so
that'd be kind of crazy to find your soulmate across the poker table.
He paid us whatever $1,500 a month to just keep this alive. It exists because of him. Now he comes to me with this game called Shootout, and he's dedicated his life to this. Okay, but he called me and was kind of having a bad day, and there was a co-founder that just whatever reason wanted to get out, and so I helped him with some strategies. He's like, oh, this guy's been maybe things haven't been as smooth, and and I said, hey, let's find a way to get him out. Without me putting in $100,000. And so I said, you could set it up. We have money coming in right now. We have money coming in from the poker. Why don't you use that company to buy him out? Right? And so he was kind of a little bit down. He's like, oh, that's a great idea. Started down that path. And it's like, okay, now I feel really good. So that's one where someone just calls me up and they're feeling down, and they have a problem. And I'm like, well, how about if we solve it this way? How about if we solve it that way? And then, and so my founders can call me because they're in the fray, man. Yeah. They're in the fray.
They're in the arena. They're at the table.
Yeah, people
at the table.
I think Bill Lee, one of my guys who's, probably doesn't even like his name mentioned, one of the best, probably the best angel investor in history. And, Bill said founding a company is like chewing glass and staring into the abyss. And so that's what these founders go through. And so the one thing I've heard from all 27 of the people that I've advised, and I only talk to the founder, /CEO, is the cheerleading. So this book that I wrote, You're Always in the Right Place at the Right Time, #positivity. But you look at the subtitle, You're Always in the Right Place at the Right Time. And so this positivity that I provide to the founders, it means a lot to them. And so the world's most successful people understand they're in the right place at the right time every day, and they move forward opening doors. And that's what I'm trying to teach the world.
Wow.
Move forward by opening doors. And it can be very simple because we're always in the right place at the right time.
I love that. I really love that. And on this note of like positivity, Phil, what I really love is when you were growing up, in your household, your mom had a phrase in the like was it in the bathroom or in the living room? Can you share a bit what that phrase was? Because I love that so much.
You are what you think. You become what you think. What you think becomes reality. And that was very powerful. That sign she had on the bathroom mirror. Now, we had on one floor of our house, it was there was a basement, there was a normal floor, there was the bedrooms, and there was an attic. The attic was unusable. And so, but all 7 of us lived on that one floor.
Yeah.
My 3 sisters shared a room. I had my own room, my brother and I, because we were older than them. And then my mom and dad had a room. And so that's 7 people taking a shower every day in the same bathroom. Nice. And so that sign would get a little shriveled up after a year or two, and then boom,
little foggy when
a little dirty, and then boom, there would be a new one that said the exact same thing. So you are what you think. You become what you think becomes reality. So I'm like, I started believing it.
Yeah.
I can create my own reality. Why not? I was trained to do that from the time I was 7 years old. And my mom was a big believer in, positive thinking and creating your own reality. And so I kind of believe that. So, and then, then in 1993, when I won 3 bracelets of the World Series of Poker, I said, I'm going to be the greatest poker player of all time. About 3-4 years ago, I said, oh, you're going to be a billionaire when you're 76. Okay. That's just kind of things I see coming that I accept. Oh, 1994, you're going to win 24 bracelets. I'm on 17 now. But I'm very healthy. And so, so then you start to really think big and you start to believe you can get there.
It's amazing. And I love that you didn't just stop at poker. And I think that's what a lot of the greats do. Even Kobe, after he was done playing, he's like, I want to have a significant impact amongst companies and et cetera. Rest in peace. But I love how you forget poker. You took it beyond poker. You're like, now you're basically the 5th person on the All In podcast in a sense. It feels like with what you're doing.
To go back to what I said, if you're a great poker player, you should be able to make $1 billion in business, or at least $100 million. I think that's the case because poker players have the mindset. So I'm kind of one of the guys that's actually following through.
You mind if I ask you, we have some replies to the tweet about audience questions.
Yeah.
My buddy Devin. All right, this one is pretty softball here, but how does it feel to be a 17-time world champion?
Well, that's one you don't dwell on, right? Because you win that bracelet and you just feel good, and it's always kind of a surprise, right? Like when I won my 17th, I texted my wife at 9 and said, hey, I want you to be ready to answer my phone call at 1 a.m. My wife goes to bed early, but she's in Vegas just for me. And then at 1 a.m., I said, hey, we're down to the final 2 tables. You're going to need to come over soon, right? And this was a 1-day tournament. And then all of a sudden we're at the final table, and now she shows up, And now it's like 3:30 in the morning. And this was because it was a 1-day tournament, and because Phil Ivey, I think Phil Ivey, Daniel, and I are the 3 biggest names in the poker world. Well, Phil and I were both at the final table. And I'm like, stop the tournament. The whole world's going to want to watch this. We'll play tomorrow. And Phil's like, no. I was told that we're going to finish this. I have something I have to do tomorrow. At noon, we had to meet to talk about Doyle Brunson. It was like really important. Mm-hmm. But Phil, for whatever reason, and I argued with him. I said, no, you're not taking over, And he said, I was told that it was a 1-day tournament. So it was fair for Phil Ivey to say that. So we kept playing. But because of that, there's nobody watching.
Yeah.
Right.
It's,
all the televised stuff in the other room's done, and the room's kind of empty. This room with 150 poker tables is empty. There's like 15 people watching because I know histories could be coming, right? And there's the cash games, which maybe had 2 tables, another 18 people, kind of like, and that's, 30 yards away. And so we're playing, and it just happens so quickly. Boom, 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 boom. And all of a sudden I'm heads up, and boom, first hand all in, boom, I win it. Now you have your 17th word, and they have this picture of me just like this, walking.
Wait, so it wasn't televised?
I was just stunned. No.
Your 17th was, that's incredible. That's
I'm
ridiculous.
walking around,
That's
I'm
blasphemous.
just walking around stunned.
That's
but
blasphemous.
Here's the interesting thing. They catch me walking like this, and behind me is a picture of me, a big picture of me winning my 16th. And so then there were memes about this Phil's jealous of this Phil was at 17 and stuff like that. And it became a huge deal in poker, and it went global quickly. But you're always kind of stunned when you win it. You expect it, but you're stunned. So yeah, there's this. If you walk around saying I'm a 17-time world champion of poker, you'll never do anything good again.
Yeah.
It's almost like you learn to ignore it.
You're never satisfied. I can tell.
No, it's like, but you learn to ignore how much money you have. You learn to ignore that you wrote a New York Times bestseller. You learn to ignore you host these TV shows. You learn to ignore it all. And you're more focused on, is my wife happy? And is my best friend happy? And let's go play high stakes poker and make fun of each other all night. It all comes down to normalcy.
Which championship felt the best for you? Was that first one the kind of the greatest feeling, or are they all equal? Like, where do you rank them?
The first one was really nice, right?
Yeah.
Because you win the main event, and in like 1989, and it's like $10 million in today's terms.
Right.
755,000. I think I made 655,000. A lot of money, and it's kind of a starter, and you're the youngest world champion ever, and it's nice. And there's a movie scripts written about that, and TV shows written about that, and so that'll probably get greenlit in the next year or two. I try not to think about that, and then. But it's cool, right? And then, I don't know, winning, I think, number whatever it was. I can't remember the name. I think winning number 12 or something. The one I won in Europe, the main event, was a big deal. And I probably only won that because I was exhausted by like day 5.
Yeah.
But they're like, we have to stop playing for 2 hours because we want to send this live to the world.
Yeah.
Great. Run upstairs, grab a nap. They warned us 10 minutes, slam a bunch of food, take a nap for 2 hours. And now I'm refreshed again.
Yeah.
And they took another break for an hour because they wanted to get the global television right. Great. So now, and my weakness is probably I get a little bit too tired. That bracelet was great. Winning my first non-Hold'em bracelet was great. So I don't really know if you can rate them, and I don't know that you think about them that often.
No, of course. I mean, I'm not of course, but it's
keep your mind in the present. You know what I mean? Keep your mind on what you need to do. Like my mind when we finish this interview is make sure I don't lose $100,000 in Chamath's game tonight. It's the last session.
Don't go broke tonight.
It's the last session of the year, and we have, we carry our balances forward. If someone loses too much money, they have to early pay. So I have a great year going there.
But before we get out of here and you go take Chamath's money, I want to ask you lastly, legacy. What do you want people to remember you as when it's all said and done?
I want to be the greatest poker player of all time, right? And could be argued that I'm the best all-around poker player in the world today, in addition to having all the records. And then I want this book, Positivity, I want people to be reading this book in 100 years. Kind of like they read... How to Win Friends, Dale Carnegie's book.
Yeah.
How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Sure.
Because this has 8 life tips that are filled with truth.
Right.
So you asked about my legacy. No one's remembered 100 years later. We still talk about what? Babe Ruth? Which athletes do we talk about from 100 years? Not many.
No, none.
And who do we talk about? Billionaires. Well, we talk about Rockefeller.
Yes.
John D. Rockefeller. There's a few others that have achieved that status. So as far as legacy, I want this out there because I'm going to improve hundreds of millions of people's lives by them simply reading the 70-minute book.
There you have it. Electric. Another great episode of the Athletes and Assets podcast with my guy Phil Hellmuth, best poker player in the world and hell of an advisor and investor. Been your host, Noah Lack. Phil, thank you so much for joining us.
It's great. No, I really enjoyed it.
Pretty awesome.